All right, John, are you there? John? John? You ready to run some laps? Oh, man, you best not be watching porn again.
Do you have a butt kicker or transducer that's not getting the job done? Is it shaking to just the low-end sounds? What if it shook when it was supposed to? SimVibe is an advanced multi-dimensional audio-based feedback software that utilizes 1 to 8 bass transducers and provides the correct physics-based vibrations throughout your simulator. This can greatly enhance immersion and drivability. All you need is one shaker, an extra sound card, and SimVibe software. To check it out for yourself, go to simexperience.com and then click on products and then SimVibe. Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and our review of the Oculus Rift CV1. I'm Darin Ganji, and beside me here is John Sable. And you may have seen my first look of the Oculus Rift, and now John has had one for about a month, so we're gonna give you both of our opinions and a final review on it.
Exactly, and before we get to our final review, let's go over some of the background stuff so you guys are all up to speed. The Oculus Rift CV1 is a virtual reality headset for the PC only. It comes with a VR headset, motion tracker, remote, a terry cloth to clean the lenses, and an Xbox One controller with a wireless dongle.
Costs $599.99 here in the States. It features two 2160 by 1200 OLED displays with a refresh rate of 90 Hz.
Oculus recommends that you have at least a GTX 970 graphics card and an Intel i5 4590 or something equivalent to both the graphics card and the CPU, and 8 GB of RAM and 3 USB 3.0 ports.
I'm not sure why they're referring to 3 unless they're including the Microsoft, the Xbox One controller, because you really only need 2.
Yes, that has to be the case. Yeah, you really only need 2, one for the sensor and one for the headset itself.
The setup was fairly painless, pretty much plug and play. Walks you through plugging it in and recognizing all the devices. Also shows you how to properly wear the headset and adjust the lens spacing. And speaking of which, I just want to point out something really quick. In my first look, someone pointed out that I didn't have basically the headband down far enough on the back of my head, and that was a great tip. And it's a tip for you guys. When you put the headset on, make sure that back head cap or strap is as low on the back of your head as possible, because then it just fits a lot better. And then there's some demos that boot up once you boot up the Oculus software that are pretty cool. What do you think of those demos, John?
I like the dinosaur one quite a bit.
Yeah, I did too. That's probably my favorite one.
Design-wise, the Oculus Rift is overall a pretty good-looking headset. It has an attractive black-on-black look and has a combo of fabric, rubber, and foam that feels really nice to touch. Also, it's surprisingly light.
Yeah, I was surprised by it too. I was expecting it to be heavier, but I'm glad it's not. It's not a big deal to have it on your head for a extended period of time.
It isn't, and that's a very good thing. And lastly, it comes with detachable headphones that you can, like I said, leave on or take off, and they're actually not too bad.
No, the quality of those headphones are really good, and what I've ended up doing with them is, like for iRacing, I use the headphones for voice chat and my spotter, and then I got my 5.1 surround sound system going for my car sound, so they work great. I haven't even taken mine off. And speaking of racing titles, I just mentioned iRacing. It can be used with Assetto Corsa, iRacing, Dirt Rally, Project Cars, American Truck Simulator, and Live for Speed. And coming soon, Automobilista has plans for VR, and so does R Factor 2.
So with all that kind of background information out of the way, let's dive into now our thoughts of how the CV1 headset performed. And I'll start off, and I think the biggest single word that comes to mind is immersion. I mean, when you're wearing the headset, you feel like you're sitting in the cockpit, and it's kind of amazing when you first experience it.
It is, and yeah, and I agree. That is the biggest selling point, and probably the biggest pro to running with the Oculus. And I'm sure it's similar with the HTC Vive. But yeah, the spatial awareness that you get when you put that headset on is second to none. A monitor just cannot match that depth. And obviously the 3D environment that you're experiencing, and I've never really experienced anything like it when it's come to sim racing or gaming in general. So yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, I think something that really took me, not by surprise, but just with the immersion is, forever we talked about monitors and setting them up and how to get the wheel position in front of your monitor right and, everything sized right, and it just does it for you. So it just makes life so much easier when you just, buy the headset and then you're done. Everything is perfectly the right size, and like you said, in 3D, it's very cool.
Yeah, and I think the only thing you may have to really do is, and you can recenter your basically your position. Sometimes I'll just kind of scoot down or raise myself up if I don't feel that the default position is right. And then in iRacing, you can even adjust camera. You can go in and tweak the camera settings. So if you do want a more forward field of view or aft field of view, you can do that. But man, like John said, you pretty much just put it on, center your, do the center, position, and you're ready to roll.
Exactly. Now, let's transition then, I think, to, at least for me, the second thing I noticed, which is probably the biggest con of it, and that's the resolution. After you kind of get through the initial shock of, being in a car and like, oh wow, this is pretty amazing, then it's like, oh wow, I can't see that thing off in the distance. And yeah, I mean, it's a shock to the system when we come to how nice monitors and how nice games look these days.
Yeah, it's definitely not matching the crispness, the clarity that you get in a monitor. And I think, like John just mentioned, when you really see it is really far off into the distance. When, if there's a car spinning, let's say, on the Mulsanne Straight at Le Mans, and it's way down that straight, you're going to have a hard time picking it up until you get a lot closer. Because it just looks blocky and pixelized, so it's really hard to pick that up. And then learning a track can be difficult as well, and picking up your braking markers. But beyond that, when you're going into a corner, the ability to be able to put your tire or fender, whatever it is, whatever type of car you're driving, right on the rumble strip or right into the the center of the apex. It's really, you can't match that experience, in my opinion, with a monitor. I feel more consistent. I know I'm more consistent because I just feel like I can really put the car exactly where I want, where, not that I'm guessing with a monitor, but it's just not as pronounced, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just in my driving, I just thought of this yesterday, a little kind of dumb saying, but anyway, I feel like with the headset, I'm a champ at hitting apexes, and I'm kind of a chump at hitting my braking points. Like, apexes, like I'm with the VR headset, like I'm on it. I see the apexes. If I missed it, that's totally on me now. But the braking points, especially like you said, when it's at a real long straightaway or something that's flat, and you're trying to pick up smaller brake markers, it's a lot harder. And to some degree, I think repetition, you get used to that. But also, I've had times where I get in like racing other people, and then I'm like, oh god, it sneaks up on you a little more with the way the far distance graphics are. So yeah, that those two things really sum up kind of like the big, I feel like, pros and cons of the headset.
Yeah, and I was going to touch on that too. Like, we ran that fun race, that Le Mans fun race, and I was getting pretty familiar with the track, but I was by myself when I was getting really familiar with that track. And then when it came to racing, it was like a whole different ballgame, because when I was by myself in the race, it was fine, but when I was battling somebody, say down the Mulsanne Straight, trying to break into that chicane, I missed my braking points a few times because it just came up on me quicker than I was thinking about, and I wasn't, so you got the 300, 200, 100 meters, I think is what it is at Le Mans. And I missed them a couple times. Actually, I ended up getting 5 slowdown penalties in that race because I just kept missing marks. But you know what, I've read some people, and I honestly haven't done enough racing to really get used to it. And I've had races that I've been in where it wasn't an issue. But I've read that a lot of people just get used to that distance viewing, and some people just say that they just forget that the screen door is there. So it is possible to get used to it. And one other thing I want to point out too is that that screen door effect may really come into play for road courses, especially ones with long straights. Now, when it comes to oval racing, it's like it doesn't really matter that much because you really only have two corners that you need to focus on, when it comes to the oval, turn 1 and turn 3. Once you're in the corner, you're transitioning to turn 2 and then turn 4. So the screen door effect isn't really as big of an issue. And again, some people have gotten used to it, and I have too in certain races, but that is a drawback and pretty much one of my only cons to running with the Oculus is that screen door effect. Man, if the visuals were as crisp as they are with a monitor, man, I would be in heaven. I think I would definitely dump my monitors if that was the case.
Now we're going to take a moment and touch on PC performance and kind of what you need to run the Oculus. As we mentioned earlier, the recommended specs say you should have a GTX 970 or equivalent to run the Oculus Rift. But, I saw a 970 run Dirt Rally at E3, and a lot of things had to be turned down or turned off to run that, so it's not necessarily the best experience. Now, I know for us, we both have GTX 1070s, and from a graphics card side, it seemed to be plenty of power. I will say, though, that my 2700K i7, that's now 5-6 years old, I do think is starting to get a little long in the tooth, and there were times, especially like iRacing, running a race like at Le Mans, where I had to go and turn my graphics settings down. Now, there were situations where I didn't have to turn things down and it ran pretty well, so of course it ran really well with a decent sized field. But there were times where I had to turn it down, so if you're looking at getting a VR headset like the Oculus, you probably want to look at getting something a little nicer, kind of like what Darin has.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm running a i7 4790K that's overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz. It seems to me, and John, you can probably attest to this as well, but the Oculus takes more processing power, and maybe because it's in a 3D environment, running at 90 frames a second than triples do.
Yes.
You found that same situation? Because you don't really have an issue running with your 2700K in triples with the 1070.
No, not really. It does seem like, and yeah, like you said, I don't know if it's the meshing together of the environment and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a lot more CPU stuff going on. I also did know that recently, I believe it was AMD with Oculus lowered the specs of the CPU you need, because I guess now they have some new technology that does a better job of meshing everything together, and it doesn't take as much CPU power. So I do think there is something there on the CPU side, and hopefully we see some improvements as we go. But yeah, you definitely want something a little newer, like the specs recommend, and kind of like what Darin has.
So let's talk about racing by Brail. And what we mean by that is that, needless to say, when you're wearing the Oculus Rift, you're blind to the environment, your external environment. So if you have button boxes, even the location of your shifter, buttons on your wheel, I think you take it for granted that you may glance down at those, and it may not be so much like on your wheel. Honestly, you get used to a position on anything with your button boxes or your shifter or whatever. You're just going to know where it's at. But it just seems, in a split second, you could glance down and look at something. Whereas with the Oculus, you don't have that luxury. So you really need to get used to your environment and where everything is, because it's just not the same. I just got those new button panels, those Derek Spear Designs button panels, and I'm not used to them. And the location of the toggles and the encoders and all that stuff. So it's been tough to get a hang of those and just kind of feel my way around. And doing that in the middle of a race, heat of the moment, is not the easiest thing to do.
No, that, like you said, that takes some practice. And I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, but I don't know, maybe more so these days, because I'm just constantly swapping wheels on and off of my rig, and yeah, it's it's tough. Every time I have to go in there and remap the wheels and try to remember what I used last time and pick that back up again, because yeah, it definitely takes some repetition and some memory. And I have to say the shifter wasn't too bad. Like I seem to do fine finding that and shifting fine with the headset on. But yeah, the button box and you know, feeling your way around there. You know, what's your when you have like 4 buttons in a row, what's your innermost button, where's the second one, third, fourth, you know, that becomes a little bit more challenging and takes some time. So you definitely want to make sure, and your keyboard too. Keyboard is also another one that's been big for me. So yeah, you really want to have all that stuff really set up before you start jumping into the races. So I think a question that probably a lot of you guys have on your mind if you haven't tried out a headset or looking to buy one is how does it perform when you're wearing it for a long time? Say if you're running an endurance race and maybe you have it on for hours. And you know, on one hand it does pretty well, on the other hand it gets really hot. So on performing well, the headset's not very heavy. And I mean, like we mentioned earlier, it doesn't really weigh down on you. I was able to run for long periods of time and I never felt any like soreness in my neck or pain from just having the headset. It did a really good job making it light. But boy, when it's a hot day and I'm running it, it can be really warm and I work up a sweat having that right on your face. And it's definitely something where, because you have your eyes covered, it'd probably be a good idea to have a fan pointed at you.
Yeah, and on that subject, matter of fact, we just posted some pictures of a DIY wind simulator that our good friend of the show, Richard McNaughton, built for us and has got all the specs and parts that you need to build one yourself. And basically this wind simulator works off telemetry from iRacing. And I think you can use other titles too with sim tools. But the wind speed will increase or decrease depending on the speed of your car. And I haven't tried it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it, especially running it with the Oculus. Now, I wouldn't want to run something like this with monitors because, like John said, having a fan pointed at your face, you know, he maybe didn't say this exactly, but basically having a fan pointed at your face while you're racing, your eyes are going to dry out. So, but yeah, you can work up, even if it's not hot, man, if you are in a heated battle and that hot headset's on your face, because it just heats up naturally because of the monitors in there, you're going to work up a sweat. So it could be an issue. Now let's transition into wearing glasses with the Rift, because that whole heating up and sweating can definitely have an effect on your glasses potentially fogging up. But honestly, I couldn't wear my glasses with the Rift. My glasses are a larger frame, and I really only need them for distance viewing. I thought it might help a little bit, but I couldn't even wear my glasses with the Rift. Now, John, you wear glasses all the time. What was your experience with them?
It was a challenge. I mean, there's no real easy way to put it. I was able to fit the headset over my glasses, but it's a tight fit. And to have, you know, when you're running without glasses, those lenses in the headset are really close to your eyeballs, and that's what gets it to work. You know, the closer they are, the better. So then when you go and you put some glasses in between there's not a lot of space, and everyth's really slammed in there, and the glasses are against my face, and then the headset against my glasses, and then I worry about my scratching up the lenses in the headset and my scratching up my glasses. You know, so far it seems to be okay. And then, like you mentioned, when things start to get hot, it fogs up much quicker when you have glasses on, and because now you have 4 lenses versus 2, and you know, not a lot of space, and that, having the glasses shield against your face make them sweat more. So yeah, that's hard. Taking them on and off is the headset on and off is very difficult with glasses on. They tend to catch, and you have to be really careful to take them off, the headset off from the back side to not catch the glasses. And yeah, it's hard. I mean, there are a couple ways that could probably help it out. Getting smaller wired frame glasses would probably help that out. I've heard of some people doing that. Now, it still would be a challenge to take on and off, but you know, you're not shoving these big glasses in there. And then also now there's some other companies out there that are making prescription lenses that you can purchase and put into your Oculus. And, I could see that, being very helpful. The negative of that is there's a lot of times in titles, a set of course that comes to mind, when you're in the menu setting everything up, you have to have your glasses on, and then when you go and it's time to race, you pull the glasses off, put the headset on, and in theory you should have your prescription. And so that's something that I'm hoping to check out in the future, and looked at the prices, and they're not too bad, about $120 here in the US. So hopefully something can check out in the future. But yeah, Oculus plus glasses, it's not ideal.
So the company VR Lens Lab is one. Then you said you reached out to them to potentially get some to review, which would be cool. I think there was another company that made maybe some wider eye cups or something that allowed the glasses, just standard glasses, to fit in there better as well. I may be wrong, but I could have swore I saw something along those lines. But when I first got the Rift, that was one of the first things I thought about. I'm thinking, am I going to wear my glasses? Be able to wear my glasses with these? But luckily, I don't have as much of an issue. My biggest issue is viewing things off in the distance without my glasses on. So now, did you run with your contacts on, John?
I did, and that's definitely the ideal way to go. And if I could, I would run that all the time. Just my eyes have just been, I don't know what's wrong with them. They've been terrible. So I've had to been running my glasses because I just can't wear contacts. But when I do wear contacts, it is a lot more comfortable. It doesn't fog up as much, it's a lot more of a relief to not feel like I have everything crammed in front of my face. So that's definitely the best way to go, and that's why these prescription lenses definitely have piqued my interest.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's move on, and next thing we're going to talk about is the head tracking sensor. For me, it worked flawlessly. I did not have any issues. And like when I tested the DK2, and it may have been because my system wasn't performing all that well, I was getting that judder effect and stuff. I have not experienced any of that with the CV1, and the head tracking is just completely smooth. I haven't had it drop on me, and when I mean drop, disconnect from my PC. I did have some issues with my motherboard. I guess in reading, I have an Asus Maximus 7 Hero motherboard, and I guess the drivers, or the way they're set up, they're not running in true 3.0. Anyway, I got some drivers and got that fixed, and they are running in 3.0. But John, you specifically have been having a few issues with the tracker.
Yeah, more recently here over the last few weeks, once in a while, I'll get a warning saying that the tracker isn't plugged into USB 3.0, and it is, and it's always been. So I don't really know what that issue is. Some days I get it and it works fine, like there's no issues. And then I had another day, like when we tried to do our fun race with the fans in iRacing at Road America. I was planning on running that in the Oculus Rift and was practicing in it, and then 15 minutes before the race, it just completely disconnected, and I just couldn't use my headset, and I had to go to triples. So, yeah, they've been few and far between, but there have been a couple, a little annoyances here and there with the tracker.
And that could be an issue. That could be a big issue. Like we're going to be running the 24 hours in Le Mans in a couple weeks, and I have a feeling you're not going to be using the Rift, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I will be, and if I had an issue like that, that could really screw up our race.
Yes. But I will say, like you mentioned, it does seem like overall, from what I've experienced and what I've read out there, that the CV1 seems to do a lot better job of staying on center than the DK2 did, and you don't have to press, hopefully, your map button to recenter the screen, or recenter yourself, I guess, on the driver's head as much as you had to with the DK2.
Yeah, and that's a tip for you guys. Every title allows you to do that. There's a couple titles that won't let you remap that function, but have a button to remap your center position, because it just comes in handy, especially like when you first jump into a car. You want to make sure that everything's centered properly. So make sure you map that. Like in iRacing, for instance, I know you can map it to whatever you want. I have it mapped to the big disc on my button box. But anyway, a little tip for you, make sure you map that button. So motion sickness, John, did you get any at all?
I did, and I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but yeah, I've never had motion sickness ever in my life. You know, I don't have any sickness driving, riding in cars and back roads, never had any issues with that. But with the Rift, it crops up from time to time. I say 90% of the time I'm fine, but 10% of the time, sometimes, you know, if I'm wearing it for a little bit in a race or just in a longer practice session, I have got it where my head gets a little lightheaded, which is, you know, kind of uncomfortable. But I've felt just plain out sick in dirt rally. I've been trying to run one of the long stages, I can't remember his name, in Finland in dirt rally. And I've tried like 5 or 6 times in the last couple of days to run it. And I get about, I don't know, halfway through, maybe 2/3, and I gotta stop. Like, I have to take the headset off because going over all those jumps and everything, like I don't feel well. So that's been a new experience for me.
Now, I'm curious, have you changed that setting in Dirt Rally? There's a setting as far as the horizon or something like that that could potentially minimize motion sickness. Have you messed with that at all?
Yeah, I played around with that, and it didn't seem to make a difference. I mean, dirt rally, like I'm fine in rallycross and stuff like that. You know, smaller jumps, but I don't know if it's just, you know, flying Finland or whatever. It just, the repetition of these big jumps and up and downs does seem to get to me, unfortunately.
Interesting. So as far as my experience goes with motion sickness, I have not had any really in any racing circumstances. And I wonder if it has to do with the fact that I'm running a motion simulator as well. So, you know, when you run an Oculus, your brain is being tricked, or you're seeing everything in this, you know, 3D environment where, you know, everything is spatially right, correct. And I wonder if your brain is, you know, expecting to have your body feel motion. And I am, so I haven't had any, and I'm going to get to why I think that it's really helping me. The motion simulator is helping me not experience any motion sickness while driving. Now, I tried it with No Limits roller coaster, and I mentioned this in my first look. Sim Experience does not have a plug-in for No Limits roller coaster yet. And I have a hard time getting through one roller coaster ride without feeling motion sickness. Because especially there's a particular roller coaster in No Limits that I've ridden in real life back in Southern California called Colossus at Magic Mountain. I've ridden it hundreds of times. And I know what it feels like. Going over, my brain knows what my body is supposed to be feeling. And I'm not feeling any of that. And I have a hard time making it through one whole roller coaster ride without getting sick. Our buddy Scott Holmes has had the same, you know, experience. He can't run No Limits roller coaster. So I'm really curious, and it's going to help me, you know, once we get a plug-in for the stage series motion, it's going to tell me if that really makes that big of a difference, and my brain is feeling the motion, so then I'm not getting the motion sickness. So anyway, that is, you know, documented, well documented within the community, that some people get motion sickness, and I've read about some guys having to get their VR legs to an extent and kind of work up to running longer distance races. You know, they'll start 10 minutes, they'll start feeling a little queasy, and they'll stop. You know, they'll try to go 15 minutes, you know, get a little queasy and stop, and just keep trying to extend the amount of time they have the headset on to, you know, get their brain used to what they're experiencing.
Yeah, and I mean, and I agree. I think I've had a little bit of that in general with myself, and yeah, I mean, if you get a headset and you're feeling that, then yeah, I think you got to stick with it for a bit, and I've done that myself. And like I said, for the most part, I'm okay, and I feel okay. It's just, you know, like I said, once in a while, certain situations it kind of crops up where I haven't felt 100%.
All right, so now we're going to transition into one last quick topic and then go into pros and cons and final thoughts. And John, does it make you faster wearing an Oculus Rift?
I don't know if it makes me any faster. I would say no. I don't think I'm any slower. And like we discussed earlier, I mean, I feel like I'm hitting apex better with it on. But yeah, I don't know if there's any tangible or intangible difference. You know, for the most part, lap time wise, it feels the same to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. I don't think I'm going to cut any faster lap times wearing the Rift versus running in triples, but there is no question in my mind I am more consistent running the Rift, and mainly, again, it's hitting apexes, so it really comes to road racing, and I probably not much of a difference at all when it comes to oval racing as far as that goes, but road racing, I just feel like, again, I can really put that tire, you know, whether it's the right front or left front tire, right on the marks every time consistently. So I think my consistency goes up as long as I don't have issues with distance braking. I think I'm more consistent with the Oculus over monitors. Okay, so that's going to transition us into pros and cons. John, why don't you start it off?
First pro is that the headset is well priced for the technology you're getting. It's easy to set up, has a nice design.
Better than expected headphones. The immersion is second to none, and the spatial awareness that you get wearing the headset. And final pro, the ability to hit your apexes more consistently.
And now let's talk about the cons, and the first con is the resolution. It gets hot when you're wearing it for a long period of time.
And the cords can be annoying, and I mentioned that in my first look, but I've since zip tied them back here to this this post that's connected to my my seat motion, so it's not as bad. And I've found that once it's on, it's not an issue. And the final con is it's not easy to use with glasses, which is going to take us to our final thoughts. And first up, John, would you take the Oculus over triples?
Boy, that's a $64,000 question. For my current setup with the bats and the BenQs and all that kind of stuff, it's a hard choice. I think I would stick with my triples over the Oculus, because of all the things we talked about, especially more with myself with wearing glasses and the resolution. I mean, the resolution, if it can just get a little bit better here, it'd be nice. I have these nice monitors that allow me to see everything around me, and no, it's not quite as immersive as the Oculus Rift, but where we're at right now with version 1, I'm sticking to the triples myself. Version 2, I think, is going to be a different story, but right now it's close. It's close, but for me and some of the issues I've had, I think I'm just going to stick with my setup for me directly.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to answer that question, and the only reason why I think I'm sticking with triples right now is because I need them for testing purposes, mainly for sim experience. I work for sim experience now, and there's a lot of titles that don't support the Oculus, and I need to test those. For instance, right now we're testing Race Room and developing a new plugin to work with their new API. So I need triples. I don't need triples. I can run on a single monitor, but who wants to run on a single monitor when you got triples? But now, if I didn't need to do that, I think I would go Oculus only. I think that I can get over the glaring con, which is the resolution. I could get used to that and deal with that because I think the pros definitely outweigh that. I've been telling people I have a love-hate relationship with it, mainly on the love side. I love it. I love the Oculus. I love how I'm more consistent. But I would like John said, when version 2, CV2 comes out, I'm hoping that it's going to be higher resolution, and hopefully it's not even more taxing on your system, which I'm sure it is. It's always that way with technology, but I'm hoping that screen door effect is completely gone. But yeah, I think I would I would be an Oculus only driver if I could do it at this point.
So that's for us. So what do you think about viewers watching here that want to know if maybe they would upgrade? What would you say to them?
It really depends on the application. That again, if you're just iRacing or just Assetto Corsa or just any one of the titles that's VR that's compatible with VR, I'd say you might want to go for it. And I can actually give you some firsthand experience. I had a couple guys over here this last weekend that were interested in a Stage 4. And, in talking to these guys, he was asking me about triple monitors and, the Oculus Rift. And I said, hey, and they live here in Washington. They're a couple hours away. I said, hey, why don't you guys come over, try it all out. You get to test drive the Stage 4 and you get to try triples and the Oculus. So when they got here, I had the triples all set up, ready to go. And they ran the triples for, I don't know, it was a father-son team. His kid races late models, by the way. And he's 22 years old. So he's still a kid. Anyway, started with triples. He seemed to struggle a little bit. His first real experience in a rig with a wheel. So anyway, they ran a little bit with the triples, and then I said, so you want to try the Oculus? And they said, yeah. They were like fish to water when they put the Oculus on. And again, they were only oval racing, really. I mean, actually, the kid ran some Watkins Glen, but he mainly he's only focused on oval racing because he races a real late model. And man, it seemed like he picked everything up quicker as far as how the car was reacting, and he said right away, this is awesome. He's like, I feel like I know what the car's doing more. The dad put it on, same experience. So after they both took it off, so I said, are you guys going to go with monitors or are you going to go with an Oculus? They're like, no, we're going Oculus. So it was kind of cool to see that firsthand. Guys that are not really into sim racing at all, trying both back to back. And I have a pretty decent setup here, 27-inch, BenQs running, fast, high refresh rate, and they wanted the Oculus. So, and you guys can take that as, should you buy it or not? I think, yeah. I mean, there's our friend Scott Holmes we mentioned. He had these same monitors, got the Oculus, ran it for about a week or two, sold the monitors. And we're seeing that a lot in sim racing. But you know what I recommend you doing? Like John, try the Oculus. Get an Oculus, try it. If you're having motion sickness or you wear glasses and you have issues with it, don't sell your triples yet, just to make sure that it's going to work for you. And that's the great thing about this sim race community is that the resale value on stuff is very high. So you can get an Oculus and resell it within a couple weeks and not lose much money.
Yeah, no, exactly. And by the way, you can sell it in our on our forums in the buy sell section. But yeah, I agree. I mean, you really, if you have an interest in this and that interest isn't going away, I think you can pull a trigger, buy one, try it out. If it doesn't work out, you shouldn't lose too much money on it. Now, if you're, I've had people ask if you have like a single monitor and you're looking to go, triples or Oculus, I don't know if I can recommend triples too hard right now. Probably best to check out that Oculus first because, there is a price component here. We mentioned in the pros that the price is pretty good for the technology. Now, $600 is a lot for, let's say, the general consumer. But in sim racing, $600 isn't terrible. And then when you compare it to a monitor setup, I mean, hell, with my 3 monitors and stand, if you do that for real without my, rigged up stand I got, you're looking at probably $3,500, $4,000. I mean, you're going to spend more than $600 for quality, three quality screens and then a quality monitor mount. So, price-wise there, it's saving. And also another point I want to make, there's a lot of you guys, especially over in Europe, who have floor space limitations. Darin and I, we both have these pretty good-sized studios, so for us to have big triple setups, it's, no big deal. But if you're in an apartment or just, a smaller house or just have a very small man cave, being able to go and just set up one little monitor just to pretty much get you into the games and then have the Oculus on, you're really using a much smaller floor space and can become a lot more viable for you to have a better experience versus triples where you literally just can't do it with your size of your room. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good reasons there to give it a try, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yep, and like we said, you can resell it like on our forums. Another thing I want to point out too, John mentioned his triple setup his is on the extreme side. 3 of those curved monitors, they're going for about $800 a piece. You can jump into the Acer brand curved monitors. Those are going for over $1,000 a piece. So you got $3,000 in monitors right there. I've priced monitor stands, so like something similar to what I have. Fast Track Sims sells one for about $500 that they could be even more expensive. So you're looking at, in John's case, about $3,500, $3,000, between $3,000 and $4,000, down to something that I have. So I bought these 3 monitors for $1,200, and a stand like that goes for $500. So still, you're at $1,700, which, you know, you could buy 3 Oculus Rifts for that price. So the price bang for buck is definitely, you know, a lot less with an Oculus than it is if you're going to go the triple screen route. And I think there's really no way you can get around it. Unless you get some cheap 60 hertz monitors, you know, then you could do that, but we don't recommend that. You know, you want a high refresh rate monitor, because then you're really going to be struggling. And you can do it. I mean, you can run on a 40-inch TV, a 50-inch TV, and you can get the job done. But if you really want to step it up and get the best experience possible, you need to go with a high refresh rate or an Oculus, period. So we're going to wrap it up now, John?
Yep, I say let's wrap it up.
Sounds good. We were a little long, but you know what? This topic deserves going long. I mean, this is a big change in how we perceive, or how we sim race, I guess is a good way to put it. You know, going from monitors, you know, I started with a CRT monitor. I think you did too as well, John. And then going to, you know, LCD, LED panel monitors, to, you know, curved monitors like John's got, to an Oculus Rift. You know, running in full 3D VR. I mean, it's huge, especially for sim racing. So, you know, yeah, we went a little long, but I think this topic definitely deserved it.
Yep, totally agree. And you guys have been asking for it for a long time, so here's everything all for you in one longish video.
Yep. So hopefully you've enjoyed this review of the Oculus Rift. May do some follow-up stuff, like John, if John gets the prescription lenses, something along those lines, or some reason the CV1 technology just advances with a firmware update or something. Maybe we'll talk about it. But anyway, for John Sable, I'm Darin Ganji. Hope you've enjoyed this review of the CV1. We'll see you guys next time.
Hey guys, again, thanks for watching our review of this guy, the Oculus Rift CV1. Been a long time coming. Good to get it out to you guys. If you're interested in purchasing this, we have an Amazon affiliate link in the description below where you can actually go and purchase an Oculus Rift. And if you do so through that, it doesn't cost you a thing, but it gives a little kickback towards us, so we appreciate that. We now have US and UK affiliates set up, and hopefully by the time you watch this, if I get my stuff together, we'll have other countries there as well, and you can go and shop and purchase it. So, if you enjoyed this review, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't. Also check out our website, isrtv.com, for latest news, reviews, and our forums, including the buy-sell section in case you didn't enjoy your Oculus Rift and you have to get rid of it. Apologies. But maybe you're looking to buy one and you want one a little cheaper, and you can go and do it there at our forums, and everyone can get what they want. So, again, thanks for watching Inside Sim Racing. See you guys next time.